National Electrical Code Table 250.66 and Table 250.66 are critical for properly sizing grounding electrode conductors. These tables are used to determine the minimum size of the grounding electrode conductor based on the size of the service entrance conductors or, in some cases, the equivalent size for parallel conductors. Let's delve into each table and understand their applications and differences. Table 250.66 is the primary table used for sizing grounding electrode conductors for alternating current systems. This table dictates the size of the grounding electrode conductor based on the size of the service entrance conductors or equivalent area for parallel conductors. The table is structured with the size of the service entrance conductor in American wire gauge or circular mills on one axis, and the corresponding minimum size of the grounding electrode conductor on the other axis. To use the table, one must first determine the size of the service entrance conductors. This is typically found in the electrical design plans or can be determined by calculating the total load and applying the appropriate opacity-darting factors. Once the size of the service entrance conductors is known, locate that size in the table. The corresponding value will indicate the minimum size of the grounding electrode conductor required. For example, if the service entrance conductors are 4/0 American wire gauge copper, then Table 250.66 indicates that the grounding electrode conductor must be at least number 2 American wire gauge copper. If the service entrance conductors are larger than the sizes listed in the table, there is a note to follow. It generally states that the grounding electrode conductor needs to be not less than a certain percentage of the service entrance conductors. In cases where the service entrance conductors are run in parallel, the equivalent size of the conductors must be determined. To determine the equivalent size, add the circular mill area of each parallel conductor. Then, refer to a wire size chart to find the single conductor size that has an equivalent circular mill area. Use this equivalent size to find the minimum grounding electrode conductor size in Table 250.66. For example, if there are two sets of 250 American wire gauge copper conductors in parallel for each phase, the total circular mill area would be the sum of the circular mill area of the two 250 American wire gauge conductors. Using a standard wire chart, find the circular mill area of a single 250 American wire gauge conductor, double it, and then find the single conductor size that corresponds to that combined circular mill area. This equivalent size is then used to determine the appropriate grounding electrode conductor size from Table 250.66. Now let's discuss Table 250.66a. This table is specifically used for sizing grounding electrode conductors at a rod, pipe, or plate electrode. Unlike Table 250.66, Table 250.66 provides the minimum size of the grounding electrode conductor based on the material of the conductor. The table provides different minimum sizes for copper, aluminum, and copper-clad aluminum conductors. The main distinction here is that Table 250.66 allows for smaller grounding electrode conductors when connected to rod, pipe, or plate electrodes. This is because the effectiveness of these types of electrodes is not directly proportional to the size of the grounding electrode conductor above a certain point. The table specifies that for these types of electrodes, the grounding electrode conductor never needs to be larger than number 6 American wire gauge copper or number 4 American wire gauge aluminum. This is regardless of the size of the service entrance conductors. It is very important to note that Table 250.66 only applies to rod, pipe, and plate electrodes. If the grounding electrode is something other than a rod, pipe, or plate, such as a concrete encased electrode or a ground ring, Table 250.66 must be used to determine the size of the grounding electrode conductor. Now let's compare the two tables. The primary difference between Table 250.66 and Table 250.66 lies in their application. Table 250.66 is the general table used for sizing grounding electrode conductors, while Table 250.66 is specifically for rod, pipe, or plate electrodes. Table 250.66 spaces the grounding electrode conductor size and the size of the service entrance conductors, while Table 250.66 provides a fixed minimum size for rod, pipe, and plate electrodes, regardless of the service entrance conductor size, up to a certain maximum. Firstly, determine the type of grounding electrode being used. If it is a rod, pipe, or plate electrode, then Table 250.66 is applicable. Otherwise, Table 250.66 should be used. Secondly, for Table 250.66, determine the size of the service entrance conductors or the equivalent size for parallel conductors. Then use this information to find the corresponding grounding electrode conductor size in the table. Thirdly, for Table 250.66a, simply select the appropriate conductor material and the table will provide the minimum size, which is number 6 American wire gauge for copper or number 4 American wire gauge for aluminum. The National Electrical Code provides specific notes and exceptions related to these tables. For example, there are exceptions for certain types of buildings or systems where the grounding electrode conductor size may be different. It is important to consult the specific code sections related to grounding and bonding to ensure compliance with all applicable requirements. Some common mistakes to avoid when using these tables include using Table 250.66 for electrodes other than rod, pipe, or plate. Failing to properly determine the equivalent size of parallel conductors when using Table 250.66. Not considering the material of the grounding electrode conductor when using Table 250.66a. Ignoring any applicable notes or exceptions in the National Electrical Code. Correctly using these tables ensures electrical safety and compliance with the National Electrical Code. Grounding is a critical aspect of electrical system design and installation. Proper grounding helps to protect against electrical shock, reduce the risk of fire, and ensure the proper operation of electrical equipment. These tables are essential tools for determining the appropriate size of grounding electrode conductors. It is critical to understand when and how to use each table correctly. By following the guidelines outlined in the National Electrical Code and using these tables properly, electrical professionals can ensure the safety and reliability of electrical systems. Remember to always consult the latest edition of the National Electrical Code and any applicable local codes for the most up-to-date requirements. Furthermore, ongoing education and training are essential for staying current with changes in the electrical code and best practices. In summary, Table 250.66 is the general table for sizing grounding electrode conductors based on the size of the service entrance conductors. Table 250.66 is specifically for rod, pipe, or plate electrodes and provides a fixed minimum size. Always refer to the National Electrical Code for specific requirements and exceptions.